Ruslan.
Whenever I talk about financial literacy on this channel, one of the most commonly thrown out passages is Jesus and the eye of the needle. So on this video, we're going to be looking at that passage. I'm going to jump right into it. It's a very tough passage for a lot of us because we don't quite understand our relationship with financial literacy, with being faithful, with wanting to earn more money, but oftentimes feeling guilty for it. And there's going to be a shocking revelation at the end that may blow your mind completely with regards to this entire conversation. So we're going to jump into that. But before we do that, guys, my name is Ruslan. We have a free How to Study the Bible course at mastermydevo.com. The link is in the description, getting you more clarity, more context, more consistency, and bite-sized pieces, ultimately for life application and life change. You can hit the link in the description. Check that out. Completely free course. Okay, this is in Matthew chapter 19. All right, and this is a very common passage. I'm going to give you guys some different commentary on it, and then we're gonna do a little experiment to figure out who this is talking about. All right, so Matthew chapter 19, we're going to go and start at verse 16. Matthew 19, verse 16. Just then a man came to Jesus and asked, "Teacher, what good thing must I do to get eternal life?" "Why do you ask me about what is good?" Jesus replied. "There is only one who is good. If you want to enter life, keep the commandments." "Which ones?" he inquired. Jesus replied, "You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony. Honor your father and mother and love your neighbor as yourself." Verse 20 says, "All these I've kept," the young man said. "What do I still lack?" Jesus answered, verse 21, "If you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me." When the young man heard this, he went away sad because he had great wealth. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Truly I tell you, it is hard for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven." Then the disciples heard this, yet they were greatly astonished. And catch the question they asked here, "Who then can be saved?" Jesus looked at them and said, "With man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible." We read this passage and we think about the rich man not being able to enter the eye of the needle. And there's been a lot of debate and controversy about what is the eye of the needle. I'm going to pull up Got Questions, and one of the theories about the eye of the needle, which I think is inaccurate, and they say so much here. So some theorize the eye of the needle was Jesus speaking of, was the needle gate, supposedly a low and narrow after hours entrance found in the wall surrounding Jerusalem. It was purposely small for security reasons, and a camel could only go through it by stripping any saddles or packs and crawling through it on its knees. Basically, hey, you know, the eye of the needle is for a camel to go through this little eye of the needle, and so it has to take all this stuff up and not be concerned with any of its issues, take all its luggage off, take all its baggage off to go through the eye of the needle. And then it says the problem with this theory is there's no evidence such a gate ever existed. Beyond that, what sane camel driver would go through such contortions when larger gates were easily accessible? When it comes to this passage, people have tried to contort it and twist it and make it seem all kinds of different things. Like, oh, it's really about a little opening in the town square and the camel has to get onto it. Or I really should say cable, not camel, but cable through the eye of the needle. Whenever we read passages like that and we go, it's harder for a rich person to enter the eye of the needle. Whenever we think about rich person, especially those of us who are in North America, we tend to think about the 1%. We tend to think about people who are a little bit richer than us. You know, the 1%. They make like $400,000 a year. They're the rich people. Man, those people driving their luxury cars, living in big mansions, the ultra rich, the ultra elite, that 1%, who could enter the eye of the needle? So me attempting to be faithful with my finances and be a good steward of what God has blessed me, why? I may not make it into heaven. A rich person can't enter the heaven, so harder than for a camel to enter the eye of the needle. When we look at this whole who is rich, it tends to be kind of relative, right? You kind of think about somebody that's just more wealthy than you. The rich snobs and the entitled. Here's the thing. If we were to pull on a little website here, How Rich Am I? And we were just to punch in some numbers, say you live in the United States. Last time I checked, I think the average household in the United States, we'll just call it 50,000. We'll say it's one person earning 50,000. If you earn 50,000, you're one person, 50,000 a year in the United States. If you have a household income, $50,000, if you earn $50,000, people richer than you are 1.5%. People you're richer than are 98.5%. You are, friend, you are in the 1%. Shout out to you. Your income is more than 17.7 times the global median. If you were to donate 10% of your income, shout out to all the tithers, you would have a household income of $45,000 and would make $5,000 in donations. You would still be in the top 2% of the wealthiest people in the world. Your income would still be more than 15.9 times the global median, and each year your donations could fund 1,010 intercid treatment bindits. I think that's for like bugs and stuff. More than 5,200 treatments for, I can't say that word, and the equivalent to saving around 1.5 healthy lives. So when we think of wealthy people, rich people, we always think of those people in America who are the 1%. But if we're talking globally, and you make $50,000 a year, friend, that passage is about you. That passage is about me. That passage is about us. Right? Who is harder for a camel to enter the eye of the needle? Got to tax those wealthy people. They got to pay their fair share. Jesus is talking about you. Yeah. Let's go back. Let's just say you make 30 grand a year. By the way, I was making 30 grand a year when I was 21 years old. Back in the day. Okay. If you're making 30 grand a year, you are in the top, way up there. You want to worry about those people that got a little bit more money than you. Guys, that's about us. We're the rich man. If you're in America, do you understand that there's hundreds of millions of people that don't have clean drinking water? Do you understand that there's billions of people that will never have a car, never drive a car? There's people that like would give a limb to live as a poor person in America. And you're concerned about the rich young ruler while you're the rich young ruler. Isn't that interesting? And you're always thinking about comparing yourself with someone else that's a little bit more richer than you. Instead, you should be looking in the mirror and asking yourself, how am I stewarding this money I've been given? You won the freaking lottery. You living in America, God gave you the biggest alley-oop to be alive here now in North America, watching this on a smart device or a flat screen TV, complaining about your life. How things aren't going to, how you don't find fulfillment in your work. Oh, if I could just find my passion and my purpose. Meanwhile, there's kids that don't got clean drinking water. You know, we're blessed to be a blessing. If you live here and you're under the sound of my voice, you're blessed to be a blessing that according to Matthew chapter 25, you are to steward and manage the wealth and the life that God has given you, the time, talent, and treasure. Why? To share with the least of those? To help other people in other parts of the world? To help other people in poverty? No way. No, you're talking about money. Store up treasure. Jesus said don't store treasure for yourself. And Jesus also didn't tell you to go and squander your freaking money and rack up a bunch of student loan debt and get a brand new car and do all the stupid things that I did with money and then blame the system or capitalism. 15 million millionaires in America. 500,000 people make $1 million a year. Still the best time ever to be alive, here and now, despite all the issues, despite all the drama. So, what is this passage talking about? Well, the most likely explanation is that Jesus was using hyperbole. Okay, some of you guys are like, hyperbole, how could he? Yes, hyperbole. He was using hyperbole, a figure of speech, that exaggerates for emphasis. Jesus used this technique at other times, referring to a plank in one's eye and swallowing a camel. Jesus' message is clear. It is impossible for anyone to be saved on his own merits. This is what the passage is actually about. Since wealth was seen as proof of God's approval, you want to talk about the prosperity gospel, they saw the world in that paradigm back then. They viewed wealth as a blessing and God's approval. It was commonly taught by the rabbis that rich people were blessed by God and were therefore the most likely candidate to heaven. That was their theology back then. Okay? Jesus destroyed that notion, and along with it, the idea that anyone can earn eternal life. The disciples had the appropriate response to this startling statement. They were utterly amazed and asked, "Who then can be saved?" In the next verse, if the wealthy among them, which included the super spiritual Pharisees and scribes, were unworthy of heaven, what hope was there for the poor man, for a poor man? And listen to what Jesus says. So the disciples heard this. They were greatly astonished. Why? Because in their culture, in their context, they thought wealth was equal to God's favor and blessing on you. However, it says, when the disciples heard this, they were greatly astonished and asked, "Who then can be saved?" Jesus looked at them and said, "With man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible." Jesus is telling you, you can't save yourself. The rich people, it's hard for rich people to get saved. Why? Because we got so much stuff we gotta take off of ourselves. We got so much luxury that we live in that we don't even think about. We got so many distractions. He's telling you that this is actually about salvation. That the rich people that they thought were really, really spiritual and really blessed, that they don't have a shot at getting into heaven. So what does that mean for you and me? That means that this entire thing is unmerited favor. It is the grace of Jesus that any of us get in. That there's no good guys and bad guys. There's no us versus them. It's just divinity and humanity. And divinity steps in and says, you know what? I'm going to live the life you can't live. I'm going to die the death you should have died. And I'm going to create a pathway for you to get into heaven. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to send you my Holy Spirit so that you aren't just getting into heaven, which is amazing. And that's the eternal scorecard, but I'm also going to give you my spirit so that you could bring a piece of heaven on earth, so that you could be the hands and feet of Jesus, so that you can care for the least of these, so that you can steward the wealth that you've been given, Mr. Christian, Mr. 1% of the global's wealth, Mr. 2%, 5% of the global's elite wealth. But you're concerned about people that are just a little more wealthy than you. Fam, globally, that passage is about you. None of us are getting in without Jesus. That is the message. That is it. That is it. And if you read that and you think about wealthy people, you need to change your heart. You need to think about yourself. You need to think about what bondage you're keeping on and what luxury and what sin are you holding on to that you can't be separated from. With man, this is impossible. With God, all things are possible. Right? And people quote that verse out of context all the time. All things are possible with God. Yeah, this is about salvation. It's about how rich people can get into heaven. That's actually what that's saying. Jesus isn't saying rich people can't go to heaven. He's saying with man, this is impossible. With God, all things are possible. How are you doing with not letting your things own you? How are you doing with not letting your life and your comfort master you? How are you doing with having an open hand mentality? How are you doing with stewardship and saying, I won the global lottery. Obviously, God wanted me to be here for some reason. It's not to just squander it away, live hand to mouth. Blame the system, blame the government, blame capitalism. Maybe I should carry myself a little bit differently. Maybe I should handle my finances a little bit differently. Maybe I should get out of debt. Maybe I should go live out Proverbs chapter 6. Maybe I should go and look at Matthew chapter 25. I know this is challenging. I know this is not comfortable to talk about, but I think it's important. And I think we miss it. I think we miss it. And I think the poverty gospel is just as dangerous as the prosperity gospel. The fact that you're missing the fact that you were born and strategically placed here. You were born and strategically placed here. You're missing it, and you think you're pious for being a derelict with your finances, for mismanaging the wealth that's not even yours. God gave you this life to steward and manage onto his glory. And you feel more holy because you've been irresponsible? Really? Really? And you read that story and think of somebody else. No, he's talking about you, friend. So in the comment section, I want to hear from you guys. What are some things that you need to do differently with your money so that you can be a blessing, so that your money doesn't master you? My man, Jason Mayfield, has his bar. He says, money is a terrible ruler, but a great servant. Money's a terrible ruler. If it rules over you, it's a terrible ruler, but it's a great servant because you can use money to love people. You can use money as a tool. You can use money to be a blessing. You can use money to build hospitals and build orphanages. You could use money to feed people, to build wells in other parts of the world to bring clean drinking water. By the way, the vast majority of the work done in terms of global philanthropy is 99% of it is done by Christians. I don't know. Let me know what y'all think.
Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.
Yo, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. Be sure to check out our Mastermind Devo course or our Find Your Niche course. The link to free resources in the description. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and consider checking out one of these other videos right over here, including my exposed testimony series that YouTube is recommending for you. All right? Peace.